So, will Labour scrap council tax in next week's budget? The speculation doesn't seem to be going away. I did a video on this a couple of months ago and looked at the proposals that were being speculated around the changes potentially to council tax to raise some more revenue. So the proposal that was being talked about was that council tax would be replaced with a flat rate, 0.5% of the value of your home annually. There's been a lot of articles written around this recently, and there is one implication specifically for pensioners. So it's quite often said that pensioners can tend to be cash poor but property rich. And this is because, over their lifetime, they've invested in housing, they've bought and sold, they've paid mortgages, they're now on a fixed pension. They do have property which has quite a lot of value attached to it. So this group of pensioners will be particularly impacted here. So if the last valuation of bands was 1991, where most homes were valued at, and since then most homes have increased significantly, and the bands that the council tax are based on haven't changed really. So if we do move to a 0.5% of the value of your home instead of council tax, then people who do have larger properties, which does tend to be pensioners, then they will be the people who really struggle most from this. Now, I wrote a bit of an article of this on my website at timetoretire.co.uk, and I asked the virtual hosts to have a view of that article and come up with their own thoughts. And I think they've come up with some useful insights. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to play the insights that the virtual host came up with. See you again soon.
Exactly. Okay, so we're looking at council taxes today. Remember those property bans from way back when? 1991, I think?
Yeah, they're ancient history as far as housing prices go.
Totally. And apparently, Labor is thinking about just scrapping the whole council tax system.
And replacing it.
Oh, yeah, they've got ideas. Don't worry. Apparently, they want to base it on 0.5% of a home's value.
Interesting.
I know, right? Sounds kind of simple at first, but I have a feeling there's more to it, right?
Oh, there's always more to it. See, council taxes, they're all based on those property bans we were talking about, the ones from 1991.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going with this.
But the thing is, the housing market, it's not exactly been standing still these past few decades.
That's an understatement. The article we got actually mentioned that average house prices have gone up by something like 400% since then. 400%.
And that's from the land registry, so you know it's accurate. And it's crazy when you think about it. Someone buying a regular house today could be paying the same council tax as someone who bought a mansion back in 91.
Wild, right? No wonder people are calling for change.
It's causing all sorts of tension. But the question is this new system, this percentage-based one, is it actually the right solution?
That's the million-pound question, or should I say, the million-pound council tax bill question.
Because the article did mention some potential downsides, especially for people in those more, let's just say expensive areas.
Yeah, it called out London specifically. Apparently, if they switched over to this new system, the average council tax bill in London could skyrocket to over £2,600.
Oof, that's a hefty increase.
That's a lot, even for London. And it's not just London, is it?
Nope, not even close. The article actually mentioned this report from the Institute for Fiscal Studies. They're like the wizards of data,
I know them, yeah.
And they're saying that 124 local authorities could end up seeing council tax increases, which means millions of homeowners could be affected.
So basically, this isn't just about Londoners potentially paying more. It could impact a huge chunk of the country.
Right. And let's not forget, that's a lot of potential voters, too.
Oh, this is juicy. It sounds like Labor might have a political hot potato on their hands with this one.
They could. The article did mention that even within Labor, there's some, shall we say, disagreement about this proposed change.
Yeah, the article said some labor frontbenchers are getting a little nervous about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can see why.
It's a classic political dilemma, really. I mean, on the one hand, they want to make things fairer, right? Create a system that actually reflects how much houses cost these days. But then, on the other hand, they don't want to scare away voters, especially with the cost of living being what it is right now.
Talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot, for sure. And, we can't talk about council tax reform without mentioning the elephant in the room.
Oh, you mean the poll tax?
The one and only. It's like the boogeyman of British politics, a cautionary tale whispered in the corridors of power. Our article brought it up, just as a little reminder of how sensitive this whole issue is.
People remember, that's for sure.
Oh, they remember. Anytime someone even breathes the word tax in this country, everyone starts seeing pound signs disappearing from their wallets.
Makes sense. And it highlights something really important. Tax reform, it isn't just some abstract thing, some numbers on a spreadsheet.
It's about real people.
Exactly. It's about real people, their lives, their homes, and whether they can even afford to keep those homes. Which brings us to the heart of it all, really. Who wins and who loses if labor actually goes through with this?
Yeah, let's get down to brass tacks. The article mentioned something about a potential postcode lottery. Some areas celebrating, while others, well, not so much.
Exactly. It really depends on where you live and what the housing market looks like in your neck of the woods. Say you're living in an area where house prices are, on average, lower than the rest of the country.
Like up north or in Wales?
Exactly. Parts of northern England, Wales, maybe even Northern Ireland. Under this new system, those homeowners could actually see their council tax bills go down.
No, that's what I call a win-win. Less tax, more money for, life. But like you said, two sides to every coin. Who ends up footing the bill for those savings?
Well, unfortunately, it's probably going to be homeowners in those already pricey areas. Think London, the southeast of England.
Makes sense. Those are the spots where house prices are just, astronomical.
Right. And those homeowners, they could be in for a pretty substantial increase in their council tax bills. We're talking potentially thousands of pounds more per year.
Ouch. Talk about adding insult to injury, especially with everything else going up in price these days. And, it's not even that straightforward, is it? Because even within those high-value areas, you could still end up with some pretty big discrepancies.
Oh, absolutely. You could have two houses right next to each other, same street, same view, but one is a family home and the other is like a multi-million-pound mansion. Right now, they could very well be in the same council tax band.
Because those bands are based on 1991 prices.
Right. But under this new percentage-based system, well, that gap in their council tax bills is going to widen big time.
So the mansion owners, who, let's be honest, are probably doing all right financially, they'd end up paying more, which, in fairness, might make sense to some people.
It's about finding that balance, trying to
Right.
make the system fair, but also making sure that people who've lived in their homes for years aren't suddenly priced out of their own neighborhoods.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? It's easy to say, make it fair, but fairness means different things to different people.
Exactly. And that's why this is such a thorny issue. Take pensioners, for example. A lot of them have lived in their homes for decades, right?
And their houses are now worth a fortune.
Right, but their incomes haven't necessarily kept pace with the housing market. So they might be sitting on a valuable asset, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can afford to pay significantly higher council taxes.
That's such a good point. It's like being house rich but cash poor.
Yeah.
You own this valuable thing, but you can't actually, live off of it.
Exactly. And that's something that policymakers need to consider very carefully. This isn't just about balancing the books. It's about people's lives.
It's about making sure that the system works for everyone, not just those who can afford to live in the most expensive postcodes. Okay, so we've talked about the potential impact on homeowners, but what about the political side of things? This has got to be a tricky one for labor to navigate.
Oh, absolutely. It's a political minefield, that's for sure. I mean, on one hand, you've got a lot of people who are really unhappy with the current council tax system. They see it as outdated and unfair, and they want to see change.
Yeah, and labor, traditionally, they've been seen as the party of, the working class, of fairness and equality. So there's pressure on them to actually deliver on those promises, right?
Absolutely. But then, on the other hand, they also know that any changes to council tax are going to have a huge impact on millions of voters. And they don't want to alienate those voters, especially in the run-up to a general election.
It's like they're trying to thread a needle with a sledgehammer.
Pretty much. And let's not forget that poll tax ghost we mentioned earlier.
Always lurking in the shadows.
It's a stark reminder of what can happen when tax reform goes wrong, and no politician wants to be responsible for round 2 of that.
So let's say Labor does decide to play this one carefully. What are the next steps? What kind of hurdles are they facing?
Well, it's not going to be easy, that's for sure. We're talking about a system that's been around for decades.
Ingrained into the fabric of, well, everything.
Exactly. Any changes, even small ones, are going to involve a whole load of legislation, public consultations.
Probably a few legal challenges thrown in for good measure.
Oh, absolutely. And, that's why it's so important for everyone to be a part of this conversation, to understand what's at stake.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, is it?
It's about people's lives.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that everyone contributes fairly, but also that we're protecting those who need it most.
Finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Right. Where fairness meets affordability and practicality doesn't get left behind in the dust.
It's a delicate balancing act.
No easy answers, but hey, that's what we're here for, right? To dig into these complex issues and hopefully come out the other side a little bit more informed.
And maybe, just maybe, spark some new ideas along the way.
And who knows, maybe we'll even stumble upon that elusive, perfect solution. Well, on that note, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think about this proposed council tax shakeup? How can we make the system fairer, more sustainable, and work for everyone? Let us know your thoughts. Until next time, keep those thinking caps on, and thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.